The metallic clang echoed, impossibly loud in the silence. A lone figure, silhouetted against the crimson Martian sky, reached up, unlatched the heavy seal of their helmet, and slowly removed it. The wind, a thin, abrasive whisper, tugged at their hair. A gasp, raw and desperate, tore from their throat, a futile attempt to draw life from the sterile vacuum. Their eyes widened, reflecting the desolate landscape, the realization chilling them to the bone. This was impossible. No human could survive, even for a moment, on the surface of Mars without protection. Yet here they were, gasping, fading, a haunting image of humanity's audacious dream and its brutal reality. This stark, unbreathable truth was the constant shadow haunting Dr. Aris Thorne. He was the brilliant, yet deeply troubled, atmospheric engineer, the very architect of humanity's fragile Martian dream. His shoulders bore the immense weight of expectation, not just from a desperate Earth, but from his own tormented conscience. Aris lived to atone, to meticulously build a future that erased the specter of a past failure, a catastrophic atmospheric containment breach on Earth that had stolen lives and shattered his peace. Mars was his penance, his canvas for redemption. The initial vision of Martian colonization had been painted in vibrant hues of hope. A second home, a new Eden for humanity. But the brutal reality of Mars's atmosphere, a thin, toxic veil of carbon dioxide, swiftly stripped away that romanticism. The core problem, the one that kept Aris awake in the sterile Martian night, was deceptively simple. How do humans breathe on Mars, without magic, without immediate agonizing death? It wasn't merely the lack of oxygen, it was the immense, crushing pressure differential, the insidious radiation, the ceaseless dust, all conspiring to make life an impossibility. Early attempts at creating artificial habitats, even back on Earth, had been fraught with peril. History was littered with ambitious projects that buckled under the strain, revealing the sheer complexity of replicating a breathable world. Each failure had been a grim lesson, etched into Aris's memory, reinforcing the monumental task before him. He knew that every decision he made, every line of code he wrote, every calculation he double-checked, held the fragile future of humanity in its balance. The pressure was immense, a constant, suffocating force, almost as powerful as the Martian vacuum itself. As Aris stared at the holographic schematics of the habitat, an unsettling sound pierced the quiet hum of the life support systems. A subtle, almost imperceptible alarm, a faint, rhythmic beep emanated from a distant monitor displaying atmospheric integrity readings. It was barely audible, easily dismissed as a minor fluctuation, but Aris's senses were finely tuned to such dissonances. It was a whisper of instability, a tiny crack in the meticulously constructed illusion of safety, hinting at a looming threat that could unravel everything. The dream of breathing on Mars, it seemed, was perpetually on the verge of becoming a nightmare. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The faint alarm, a ghostly echo of past failures, resonated deep within Aris. It was a familiar, unwelcome melody, one that transported him back to the acrid smell of ozone and the screams that had torn through the sterile halls of the Earth-based atmospheric containment facility. The memory was a raw wound, perpetually unhealed. He saw the shimmering, unstable containment field, heard the desperate shouts of technicians, then the sickening implosion, a vacuum tearing through metal and flesh. Lives, entire families, extinguished in a breath, all because of a fractional miscalculation, a system he had designed, a trust he had betrayed. That catastrophic breach, that indelible stain on his soul, was the crucible from which his Martian obsession had been forged. Mars wasn't just a mission, it was his agonizing, solitary path to atonement. He blinked. the harsh Martian light replacing the flickering emergency lamps of his memory. Beside him, Anya Sharma, a woman whose pragmatism was as unyielding as the Martian rock, peered at the schematics. Her brow was perpetually furrowed, a testament to her skepticism. "Another pressure anomaly, Aris," she stated, her voice devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the tumult within him. Section Gamma 7. Microfracture detected. Anya was a systems specialist of unparalleled skill, but her cautious nature often clashed with Aris's desperate, almost reckless drive. Across the console, Kalen, a young bioengineer whose eyes still held the untarnished idealism of Earth, gasped softly. A microfracture? Could that compromise the integrity of the whole habitat? Kalen saw the world in possibilities, in organic growth and symbiotic solutions. Aris saw it in cold, hard numbers and immediate, brutal necessities. Their differing philosophies created a subtle, constant friction, a tension that hummed beneath the surface of their shared purpose. The first and most immediate hurdle was always pressure containment. Maintaining Earth-like pressure within the habitat was an engineering nightmare, a constant battle against the Martian vacuum that relentlessly tried to tear their fragile bubble apart. Every weld, every seal, every inch of reinforced alloy was under unimaginable strain. It was a constant invisible war, fought with sensors and structural monitors, a war they could not afford to lose. And then there was the dust. The pervasive, insidious Martian dust, a fine, abrasive powder that found its way into every crevice, every mechanism. It was the planet's relentless antagonist, a silent saboteur that threatened to choke their life support systems. Aris pictured the filters, already struggling, their intricate meshes slowly clogging, screens obscured by a fine, rust-colored film. He knew the dust was a constant existential threat, demanding vigilance and maintenance that bordered on the obsessive. "The solution has a cost, Kalen," Aris murmured, his gaze fixed on the flickering pressure readings. "A constant astronomical cost. Energy requirements alone are staggering, let alone the sheer human labor for maintenance." The words hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of the immense resources poured into this impossible dream. Anya's voice cut through the silence. "And what about the long-term viability, Aris? We're patching holes, not building a sustainable future. This entire endeavor feels like a house of cards, constantly on the verge of collapse." Her doubts, though logical, grated on Aris's frayed nerves. He understood her caution. But he also knew the alternative was humanity's slow, agonizing demise on Earth. Just then, a forgotten comms channel crackled to life, displaying a fragmented, encrypted message. It was old, decades old, buried deep within the forgotten archives of his personal databanks. The sender ID flickered. Mentor, Alpha. Aris's past mentor, the brilliant but unconventional scientist who had vanished years ago, leaving behind only whispers of radical theories. A cold dread, mixed with a desperate flicker of hope, tightened in Aris's chest. The message was accompanied by a single, cryptic file. Project Chimera, Unstable Atmospheric Recycler. A radical, untested solution, deemed too dangerous for Earth. The whisper of instability from the monitor suddenly felt like a roar. The fragmented message from his long-lost mentor, Project Chimera, pulsed on Aris's datapad. A digital ghost from a forgotten past. He worked with a feverish intensity, his fingers flying across the holographic interface, decrypting the layers of obfuscation his mentor had so meticulously crafted. The algorithms were complex, designed to hide a truth too radical for conventional science, too dangerous for a world not yet desperate enough. As the final encryption dissolved, The schematics for an atmospheric recycling system bloomed before him, an intricate web of pipes, chambers, and reactors. It was a marvel of theoretical engineering, a self-sustaining loop designed to strip carbon dioxide, generate oxygen, and regulate pressure with unprecedented efficiency. But a chilling warning accompanied the diagrams. Requires unstable isotopes for catalytic conversion, extremely volatile. Terrestrial application rejected due to unacceptable risk. Aris felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. His mentor, a man who had pushed the boundaries of science with reckless abandon, had deemed this system too perilous for Earth. Yet here on Mars, where every breath was a calculated risk, unacceptable risk was becoming the new standard. The system demanded specific, rare Martian isotopes, elements known for their extreme radioactivity and short half-lives. Their extraction would be a hazardous undertaking, requiring specialized equipment and exposing anyone involved to significant dangers. Kaylin, ever the idealist, leaned over Aris's shoulder, her eyes tracing the complex pathways on the screen. But Aris, couldn't we focus on more organic methods? Slow terraforming, introducing specially engineered algae, lichen, even hardy extremophils. It's a slower path, yes, but it's sustainable, less violent. Her voice was earnest, filled with the hope of a truly living Mars, a planet slowly coaxed into life rather than violently reshaped. Aris let out a weary sigh, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. Kaylin, we don't have decades, let alone centuries, for slow terraforming. People are breathing recycled air in a metal box that's literally fighting to stay intact. We need immediate, scalable solutions to sustain hundreds, soon thousands. Your methods are for the grandchildren of the first settlers, not the settlers themselves. His dismissal, though rooted in brutal reality, stung Kaylin, dimming the spark in her eyes. Anya, who had been observing the exchange with her customary stoicism, finally spoke, her voice cutting through the tension. Aris, this Project Chimera, it's a gamble, a colossal one. The energy requirements for isotope extraction alone will strain our power grid to its absolute limits, and the risks associated with handling such volatile materials are immense. What if there's a containment breach during processing? What if the system itself proves unstable under Martian conditions? We're talking about a potential catastrophic failure that could compromise the entire habitat. Her words were not accusatory, but a stark recitation of facts, a pragmatic assessment of the precipice they stood upon. Aris met her gaze, his own eyes reflecting a deep, internal conflict. Anya, we have three paths. Kaylin's organic terraforming, which is too slow. Our current closed-loop system, which is too fragile and constantly teetering on the edge of failure, as you yourself pointed out. Or this. He gestured to the glowing schematics of Project Chimera. It's high risk, yes, but it's also high reward. It promises genuine atmospheric self-sufficiency, a true breath of life, not just recycled fumes. He knew the dangers, felt the weight of them pressing down on him. But the memory of the catastrophic breach on Earth, the lives lost, fueled an unyielding resolve. He needed a solution that was definitive, robust, even if it meant dancing with fire. The current system was a slow death. This, at least, offered a chance at life. His decision, though unspoken, hung heavy in the air. The radical system, the mentor's dangerous legacy, was the only viable path forward. The weight of his past, the urgency of the present, left him no other choice. Just as he was about to voice his resolve, a sudden jarring lurch shook the habitat. Lights flickered violently, plunging them into momentary darkness before emergency power kicked in, casting an eerie red glow. A high-pitched whine emanated from the main power conduits, followed by the distant clang of metal. The habitat's vulnerability, a silent threat, had just made its presence known in the most visceral way. The choice was made. The metallic clang still reverberated as Aris, his jaw set with grim determination, ordered the extraction team to prepare. The power fluctuation had been a stark reminder of their precarious existence, solidifying his choice. Anya, though silently disapproving, moved with practiced efficiency, directing the preparations for the isotope retrieval. Kaylin, her earlier idealism tempered by the habitat's near-death experience, watched Aris, a new understanding dawning in her eyes. The three of them, along with a small specialized crew, donned their heavy radiation-shielded suits, the air thick with the hum of life support systems. The airlock hissed open, revealing the desolate, rust-colored Martian landscape. The extraction mission was a ballet of precision and peril. They moved like ghosts across the Martian surface, the weak sunlight glinting off their helmets. Aris led, his movements deliberate, guided by the coordinates his mentor had embedded in Project Chimera's schematics. The ground was treacherous, a fine, abrasive dust coating everything, constantly threatening to clog their delicate equipment. Specialized drills, designed to minimize atmospheric contamination, bored into the crimson soil, seeking the pockets of highly radioactive isotopes. The radiation alarms in their suits chirped intermittently, a constant, unnerving reminder of the danger. Each isotope capsule, glowing faintly with contained energy, was handled with extreme care, transferred into lead-lined containers, their weight a tangible burden. The process was agonizingly slow, each minute stretching into an eternity under the alien sky. Back in the habitat's main engineering bay, the new atmospheric system, a complex array of conduits and reactors, awaited its volatile fuel. As the extraction team meticulously began the integration process, a subtle, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the system. A single, critical pressure valve, located deep within the new oxygen reclamation unit, had been tampered with. It was a deliberate act, a tiny, almost invisible loosening of a crucial component, designed to fail only under the immense strain of the new system coming online. The saboteur, a crew member whose fear had curdled into resentment, had chosen their moment with chilling precision, slipping away unnoticed amidst the frantic preparations. They believed the radical system was too risky, a foolish gamble that endangered them all, and they had decided to prevent its activation by any means necessary. As the first, highly unstable isotopes were fed into the catalytic converter, the system groaned to life, a deep, resonant hum filling the engineering bay. Then, a shriek. Alarms blared, red lights flashed across the control panels, and the pressure readings for the oxygen reclamation unit plummeted. "Pressure breach!" Anya yelled, her voice tight with alarm. "It's the primary reclamation valve. It's failing!" Panic threatened to engulf the room. The system, designed to provide the very air they breathed, was tearing itself apart. Without a moment of hesitation, Aris ripped off his comms headset, his eyes scanning the schematics, pinpointing the failing valve. "I'm going in," he shouted, already grabbing a repair kit. The area around the valve was a maelstrom of escaping gases and rapidly dropping temperatures. He knew the risk. A full breach could compromise the entire habitat. But the memory of the Earth disaster, the faces of those he couldn't save, fueled a desperate surge of adrenaline. He squeezed through the narrow maintenance access, the cold escaping air stinging his exposed skin. His fingers, numb with cold, fumbled with the tools, every second a battle against the system's impending collapse. Kaylin, watching Aris risk his life, her face pale with fear, finally understood the true weight of his desperation, the raw courage born from past failure. The idealism she once held seemed naive in the face of such brutal reality. Just as Aris tightened the last bolt, sealing the failing valve, a violent shudder ripped through the habitat. The main pressure gauge, still fluctuating wildly, dipped precariously low, threatening to equalize with the vacuum of Mars. A near-catastrophic pressure drop, averted only by Aris's desperate last-second repair. The habitat groaned, then slowly, agonizingly, began to stabilize. The alarms quieted, replaced by the steady, powerful hum of the revitalized system. Exhausted, shivering, but triumphant, Aris emerged from the maintenance tunnel. His eyes, however, caught something glinting near the repaired valve. A small, almost invisible tool mark, inconsistent with the standard maintenance procedures. It was deliberate. It was sabotage. The true threat, he realized with a chilling certainty, had come from within. The air, initially thin and acrid, slowly began to thicken, filling the habitat with a faint, metallic tang. A collective gasp rippled through the control room as the atmospheric system, now fully online, hummed with a new, powerful efficiency. The pressure gauges held steady, slowly climbing towards Earth-like conditions, a miracle born from desperation and a dangerous gamble. Aris, still covered in grease and sweat from his heroic repair, watched the readings with a guarded relief. The air was breathable, a testament to his mentor's radical design and his own unwavering resolve. Yet, the victory felt fragile, tainted by the knowledge of the internal betrayal. The sabotage, a sharp, cold jab in the heart of their fragile existence, overshadowed the monumental achievement. His gaze swept across the weary faces of the crew, finally landing on a figure attempting to melt into the shadows near a console. Elias, a junior maintenance tech. Elias had always been quiet, prone to anxiety, but Aris now saw something else in his eyes. A flicker of fear, yes, but also a deep-seated resentment that spoke volumes. The small tool mark near the valve, a precise, almost surgical incision, now made chilling sense. Aris moved towards Elias, his steps deliberate, each footfall echoing the weight of his accusation. Elias flinched, his eyes darting wildly, betraying his guilt. Elias. Aris's voice was low, devoid of anger, yet laced with an undeniable authority that made the young tech visibly tremble. The valve. You tampered with it. Elias stammered, his face paling. No, Dr. Thorne, I wouldn't. But his denial was weak, crumbling under the weight of Aris's unwavering gaze. Tears welled in Elias's eyes, and he finally broke, his voice a choked whisper. It was too much, too dangerous. Everyone said it was insane. We were going to die. I wanted to stop it. I was so scared. His words, though born of fear, were a stark reminder of the immense psychological toll their predicament had taken on everyone. The Martian dream, for some, had become a Martian nightmare. Aris felt a pang of something akin to pity, but it was quickly overshadowed by the cold logic of survival. Trust was a currency they could ill afford to lose. He knew that in their isolated, precarious world, such an act could unravel everything. Elias was immediately confined, not out of malice, but for the safety of the entire habitat. The confrontation had been necessary, but it left a bitter taste, a stark reminder that the enemy wasn't just the Martian environment, but also the fear that festered within their own ranks. Despite the shadow cast by the sabotage, the habitat now truly lived. The air, though still recycled and conditioned, felt fresher, heavier, a tangible presence in their lungs. The hum of the air recyclers, once a symbol of their fragile existence, now became the comforting heartbeat of their new home. Anya, ever pragmatic, meticulously monitored the system, her skepticism slowly giving way to a reluctant acceptance. She approached Aris, her eyes reflecting a newfound respect. "It works, Aris," she admitted, her voice softer than usual. "Against all odds, it actually works. You were right." Her acknowledgement, though terse, was a significant validation, a bridge built over their past disagreements. Kaelin, watching the exchange, felt a profound shift within herself. The raw, visceral struggle for survival, the desperate courage Aris had shown, had stripped away her youthful idealism, replacing it with a hardened understanding of reality. She saw now that true progress often demanded difficult, calculated risks, and that sometimes the only way forward was through the fire. The habitat, once a mere collection of modules, was now a living, breathing entity, constantly demanding attention, maintenance, and unwavering vigilance. Every tremor, every subtle shift in pressure, every flicker of a warning light was now part of their new normal. Just as the crew began to settle into this fragile new rhythm, a distant, almost imperceptible ping echoed through the control room. A long-range sensor, part of the habitat's early warning network, had picked up an anomaly on the Martian surface, far beyond their immediate operational radius. It was faint, indistinct, but undeniably there. Something unexpected, something that shouldn't be. The breath of life had been secured, but Mars, in its infinite, alien wisdom, was already preparing its next challenge. The fragile victory was merely a prelude. The colony, having secured its first breath, now turned its gaze towards the horizon, a vast red expanse that still held countless secrets. The anomaly, detected by the long-range sensor, became the immediate focus of their attention. Aris, no longer just the architect of survival, but the burdened leader of this nascent world, felt the immense weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The fragile stability they had achieved was a constant demand, a complex symphony of systems that required unwavering vigilance. Every day brought new micro-adjustments, new calibrations, new battles against the relentless Martian environment. Kaelin, her youthful idealism now tempered by the harsh realities she had witnessed, transformed into a pragmatic force. She meticulously analyzed data, proposing innovative, long-term solutions for sustainability, shifting her focus from theoretical terraforming to practical resource management. Her proposals, once dismissed as impractical, now held a new gravitas. She worked tirelessly on closed-loop agricultural systems, experimenting with Martian regolith as a growing medium, driven by the understanding that true independence meant more than just breathable air. Yet, Mars remained an unforgiving adversary. Dust storms, colossal and blinding, frequently tested the habitat's integrity, scouring its exterior and threatening to clog vital external filters. Radiation, a silent, pervasive killer, necessitated constant monitoring and the development of new shielding protocols. Redundancy, Aris often reminded the crew, was not a luxury. It was the bedrock of their continued existence. Every critical system had a backup, and every backup had a contingency plan. The fear of another failure, another near catastrophe, was a constant undercurrent, a stark reminder of their precarious foothold. The human element, too, presented its own set of challenges. The isolation, the confinement, the relentless pressure of living on another planet took its toll. Counseling sessions became a regular feature, a necessary outlet for the simmering anxieties and occasional outbursts. Trust, once fractured by the act of sabotage, was slowly, painstakingly rebuilt through shared hardship and collective effort. Aris, having confronted the saboteur and dealt with the immediate crisis, understood that compassion, even for those who had faltered, was essential for the psychological well-being of the entire crew. The investigation into the anomaly on the surface yielded astonishing results. A small, specialized rover, dispatched with utmost caution, transmitted back images that sent a ripple of excitement through the colony. What they had initially detected as a strange energy signature was, in fact, an enormous, previously unknown underground ice deposit, stretching for kilometers beneath the Martian surface. It was a potential game-changer. Water, in such vast quantities, meant not only drinking and hygiene, but also fuel for return journeys, and a critical component for future, more extensive terraforming efforts. But this discovery, while monumental, presented its own new, complex engineering feat. Extracting the ice would require drilling deep into the Martian crust, developing new melting and purification processes, and safely transporting the precious resource back to the habitat. It was another colossal undertaking, another high-stakes gamble in their ongoing struggle for survival. Aris stood at the viewport, gazing out at the desolate yet beautiful Martian landscape, the red dust shimmering under the distant sun. He took a deep, steadying breath of the recycled air, a breath he had fought so hard to secure. The habitat hummed around him, a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. They had learned to breathe, a monumental achievement in itself. But he knew, with chilling clarity, that this was just the beginning. "We've learned to breathe," he murmured to himself, his voice barely audible above the gentle thrum of the life support systems. But learning to live, that's the next frontier. He paused, his eyes scanning the horizon, already anticipating the challenges that lay ahead. And the solution, as always, will have a cost. The journey was far from over,